Yo, what's poppin', guys? Sizzle here, and today we're taking a look at the SG-553 to try and figure out what the best skins it has available are. First off, we have stock. Pretty awful. You have like a few different colors for like the scope and the mag and whatnot, and they all just do not go together whatsoever. This is probably one of the worst stocks in the game that I can think of off the top of my head. You definitely do want to get a skin for this if this is a weapon you plan on using just anytime. I'd actually just say this is an F tier stock. Anyway, next up is our first, like, real skin, the SG-553 Tornado. Actually, pretty beautiful recolor. Nice, like-ish color of blue on the outside with a very nice tan center. Pretty well sanctioned off and everything. It actually looks just pretty clean and pretty hard to go wrong with. I'd say it's either a high C or even possibly low B tier, depending on how good the rest of these are. But it is a very, very good start. Next up, we have ourselves the SG-553 Waves Perforated, or something like that. I mean, it's just, I don't know, like a whitish blue, like, scratch texture with a bunch of dots over it. The dots make it look a lot worse than it had to, but it still doesn't look completely awful. Definitely looks way better than stock, so I'm gonna put it probably just at a low D tier. I think it's this one. It's actually hard to tell which of them they are, because those are pretty similar skins. Anyway, next up we have the SG, I'm just gonna call it the SG Army Sheen. This is just awful, just straight up. Absurdly shiny front, or back, depending on the lighting. The back camera looks awful, the front thing, just is whatever, and then the rest of it's stock, and stock is pretty awful. This is just a downgrade to stock, to be honest with you. I would never use this skin, it just sucks. I mean, the shiny tip it seems to be unique just from the preview. It's like very noticeable. It's not enough to make it a good skin. Then next up we have the SG Barricade, which has that classic maze camo. It's like grayscaled. I mean, it's a little bit better than stock, but this is still a pretty awful skin. It's super, super dull, and the pattern's pretty much impossible to see. It is better than stock, though. Like, I mean, stock is so awful that this is still passable. It's a high F tier, I'd say. Next up, we have the SG Lush Ruins. And, yeah, got a green front, I guess, and then it's got some texture in the back, but it's still half stock, and it's just half stock, and stock is bad, but at least stock is like a complete package. It's just half something that maybe could have been good. If it was fleshed out, and then half just nothing. It just looks pretty fucking awful. I'd say this is just another like low F tier unusable skin. Yeah, it's just bad. Then we have the SG Bleached, and this one is a lot more straightforward. I mean, it's a bit more of a bright skin. It's just like a desert with some skulls in it. It's all right. I mean, it's definitely not good or anything, but it's not awful, which is kind of saying a lot as far as the SG skins so far are concerned. So I'll put it probably in D tier. That's where it belongs. Then we have the SG Gator Mesh. This one has like an absurdly low float. Like this is the one of the skins like most in the game or something. Or maybe I'm messing up which Gator Mesh. But anyway, it's alright. I mean, you got some decent, nice like stripes and like a mesh thing, which makes this a bit like a camo skin. And you know, it is a camo skin. I don't like camo skins. This is still bad for me, but I could see some people actually kind of liking this one. I'll give it some credit and put it in D tier. I mean, it's not completely awful. It's definitely very usable. Then next up, we have the SG Traveler, and you know, same problem. This one is half stock. However, the changes they made kind of work with stock a lot more. Like this back and this little thing in the front here work a lot better with the half that is stock, so it's a bit more usable, but still nothing crazy. I'd still put this in D tier. I mean, it's like mostly unusable, but you know, it is a straight upgrade to stock, which is always nice. Then next up, we have the SG Fallout Warning. This one's interesting because the Fallout Warning is pretty infamously known for, you know, you want this radiation symbol, except the radiation symbol is just not on the weapon. Maybe it's pattern based and maybe you can have it on the weapon. I hope so. But if not, then you know you're missing the radiation symbol and you just have like a reddish, like more like turquoise rather than blue reddish turquoise weapon, which, you know, it's not bad. It's kind of passable, but the fact that it's missing that radiation symbol makes it like a low C tier. When realistically, this could have even been a B tier if it had that radiation symbol, because I do really like the look of that. Then next up, we have ourselves the candy apple. And, you know, like most candy apples, this one's actually clean. And you have a nice red center and red tip, and then the rest of it's a very nice color black, and just overall super clean, super nice. And I mean, they could have distributed the colors a bit better, but otherwise, I do really just like the candy apples for how clean and simple they are. This is no different. Then we have the SG Damascus Steel. And this is another side grade to stock, but I think this is what stock should have been. This is a much better centerpiece for the stock kind of build. It still looks pretty bad, but it's way more passable than default stock, so, you know, I'll give it that. It's a pretty solid side grade. Point that I'll probably put at the top of D tier. I think that's a pretty reasonable place to be putting that weapon. Then next up, we have ourselves the SG Anodized Navy. And, you know, it's stock yet again, but with like a blue center. Unlike the other anodized navies, like on the MP7, I think this one just looks worse. The blue does not go with most of stock. I'd say it's another, you know, low F tier. Seem to be a lot of pretty bad skins. I guess it's an older weapon. Then we have the SG Desert Blossom, which, you know, is a pretty unique pink tip and like pink flowers around the rim of the desert, but it is still half stock, which I don't really like. But the pink tip is a really nice touch. I think it adds a bit. It just makes a slight upgrade to stock just for that, because a lot of people do like, you know, stuff like that. But yeah, the centerpiece does not go with the rest of the skin. It looks kind of out of place. I understand you're mainly seeing the body and the tip in game, but that doesn't mean the rest of the weapon needs to look awful. At least that's my opinion, and that's kind of how this one looks. So I'm going to put it as a low D tier. I do think that pink tip is passing enough and unique enough that I can realistically put this in D tier. Then we have the SG Ultraviolet, and this one's just, this is perfect. I mean, this is what the candy apple should have been, but instead of the purple, it should have been the nice candy apple red. It has a slightly worse set of colors than the candy apple, and it's a tiny bit less clean and like visually pleasing, but this is just way better on the eyes. I mean, it's just a mainly purple skin with a very nice gray base, just super clean, super good. By far the best thing we've seen so far. I'm gonna move Candy Apple down to B and put this in A tier, because it really is actually doing what the Candy Apple should have been doing. Just really nice. Then we have the SG Wave Spray, and, you know, like the Waves Perforated is like this, but with dots on it. And honestly, I think the dots made it look better, because you focus less on the god-awful pattern in the background. So I think, honestly, this one's just below it in D tier. Yeah, that's pretty much all I say about that. Then we have the SG Atlas, which, yep, this is just a camo skin. It's a pretty straightforward camo skin. More modernized, I guess, but it is just a camo skin. I mean, it uses the whole weapon, and it doesn't have better way than the other camo skin, but can't really give it much credit beyond that, so I'm gonna put it toward the higher end of D tier, because I just don't like camos, even if this one is pretty decently well made. Then we have the SG Aerial, which this one's kind of interesting. Got a generally just clean and nice finish, and then it's got a really nice just white like wing in the middle here that your eyes can really focus on. Pretty solid skin. In most other skin tier lists, this would be like a low C tier, but in this one, in this case, I think it's a high C tier, because it's actually just a really solid choice for an SG skin. Then we have the SG Aloha, which, man, it just does not look all that great. I mean, you got some bright blue flowers that kind of stick out, which I think is kind of a cool detail, but on the whole is just really dull and kind of hard to see. You're basically just like seeing these light blue flowers and then being like, oh, that's not just a bland skin, it has like one or two details on it. But on the whole, it's just kind of whatever. I'm probably gonna put it at a low C tier, because that's, you know, a lot better than most of the SG skins we've seen so far. So I guess it's a C tier. Then we have the SG Danger Close, and this one's interesting. It kind of looks like there's like just dried blood on most of like the top part of it, and then the back is just like a cleaner version of stock, like what stock should have maybe been. It's alright. I mean, it's nothing crazy, but being alright is enough to probably put it in the middle of C tier. There you go. Then we have the SG Old Rusty, and yeah, this is nice. You got like the namesake, like Old Rusty, right in the middle, dead center where everyone can see it, and then otherwise it's just like a rusted old weapon. It looks clean, looks solid, looks good. You get what you bargained for. So it's probably a low B tier. Next up, we have ourselves the SG Heavy Metal, which I've never heard of or seen in my life, but it looks actually really good. I love these like little square things that they have across the whole thing, and the way they like work with the lighting is super clean. They even did a little thing with the scope here, which is kind of nice, but I think they could have done a bit more there. And then all these like little random like scratches and I guess drawings or whatever right in the middle are a very just nice detail that kind of brings it all together. This, I don't know, something about this just speaks to me. It's actually phenomenal. I might have to pick myself one of these up. It looks great. I think it's kind of a slept-on skin. I'm surprised I haven't seen this in game, but I guess that's mainly because no one really uses the SG in game, so that's probably why I haven't seen it. But it's a really good skin. Yeah, definitely S tier. Then we have the SG Cyber Force. It's just your standard, design in the middle skin. It does have a like a Illuminati triangle there, but the colors don't change on it because I guess this is a bit of an older case before people started doing like hollow effects on all their skins. But yeah, I mean it's a pretty dull version of what it could have been. It could have been a lot more vibrant and like nicer to look at, but it still definitely is not bad to look at by any stretch of the imagination. It looks pretty solid, but nothing crazy. I'd say it's probably a high C tier if I could find it. There's not even that many left, so I don't know why I can't find it. Maybe I just don't have it, or maybe I already put it in because I do not see it here. It's definitely not any of these. Yeah, if I see it later, I'll put it in C tier, but just know that it would have went into C tier. Yeah. Anyway, next up we have the SG Bulldozer. Yeah, it's like a candy apple, but with a nicer center color. I do like this yellow a lot more than the red. And it's got that same nice outer finish the candy apple had, but it's just a lot more vibrant and visually pleasing, to the point that I'll put in A tier. That looks really nice. Then next up we have the SG Hypnotic. This one's 90% stock with like a metallic base that has this, kind of set of rings on it, and it's pattern based. It looks generally awful, just like stock, but it is slightly better than stock, so I'll give it credit for that and put it, at top of F tier. But it's pretty much unusable. I wouldn't want to use that. Then we have the SG Pulse. This was my go-to skin for the SG for years, and I can see why. It's got a pretty interesting, like, fragmenting kind of design with, like, pink and purple, and just a nice black base behind it. It's a nice mix of colors with a decent pattern and a pretty decent idea, executed pretty solidly, to the point that I'd say it's definitely a low B tier. It's definitely a skin you should consider getting. It's just solid. Pretty hard to go wrong with. Then we have the SG Tiger Moth, which, yeah, this one's kind of interesting. You have, like, molten lava on the back, and then, I don't know what this is on the front, to be honest, but something else on the front. And it's, I don't know, it's an interesting clash of kind of designs and colors and whatnot. And it looks pretty solid at the end of the day. Nothing amazing, but I do kind of like it. The back looks really dope, and the front looks like okay, and it kind of works together somewhat well. I'll say it's probably deserving of like a high C tier. Then next up, we have the SG Triarch, which is just, your basic camo skin, except a bit less camo than the other camo skins, so for me that makes it a bit better, but it's still very much a camo skin at heart. I'm gonna put it probably top of D tier. And next up we have ourselves the SG Phantom, and this is just your classic HD skin. Nothing special about it, but it doesn't look bad or anything. I'd say it's just probably a decent C tier contender. Then next up we have ourselves the SG Darkwing. And this one looks really dope. I really like the way the colors kind of morph. It goes from like black to like gray to, you know, red. And then you have like this like red molten lightning stuff coming off of like bird feathers. And there's just kind of the idea of like a bird throughout most of the front of this weapon. I just really like the colors. Like the pattern's actually pretty cool too, and like the actual design of the, you know, the skin. But the way the colors kind of mash together from one side to the other, and the colors used are absolutely beautiful. I think it's a really nice looking skin, and really, yet again, hard to go wrong with. I'd say it's probably an S tier. Then next up, we have the SG Dragon Tech, which has a really intricate dragon looking directly at you, which is kind of unsettling, and then, you know, generally a green design with a bunch of stuff around it. It's pretty alright. Not gonna put it like stupid high or anything, but I think it's a pretty decent one. Probably top of C tier. Decent colors, okay pattern. It's not something I particularly like. Then we have the SG Integral. I don't know. I guess it's Integral. That's your classic like racing sponsored sticker, except this one's predominantly has this nice color red here and nice color white in the back. And then, you know, some blue to mix together, you know, the red, white, and blue, like US flag colors. And it's alright. I mean, there's I don't like all the random, like, fake companies and sponsors, like Rick Oil, Brendo, and whatever. Just all together like that. Super weird to me, to have, like, an almost sponsored skin. But otherwise, it's got nice colors and a generally nice design. If it wasn't for that, it would probably have been like an A or S tier. But I really don't like all the random clutter included on this skin for no real reason. Then we have the SG Hazard Pay. And this one's pretty straightforward. A very nice, like, this is like the bulldozer on steroids. Or is it bulldoze or bulldozer? You know what I mean, the yellow SG on steroids. Looks absolutely visually stunning with all the yellow all around. And it's got this really cool cone thing right by the scope that I really like. It's just a really small detail that goes a really long way, making a skin feel that much better. It's got this caution tape toward the bottom as well, and like a few tiny details here and there. It even says caution right here and on the back and stuff. It's a pretty cool skin, very well designed, very well executed. I absolutely love it. If it wasn't so absurdly pricey, coming in at around $1,000 as of today, and probably more later on, I would love to get myself one of these, but it's just too expensive for me. For a weapon I don't use that much, but it is an amazing skin. That's why it goes so high on this tier list. Then we have the SG Cyrex, and so, you know, it's a bland, basic skin. You know, okay colors, pretty shitty pattern. That's about all there is to it. Probably just goes like below the tornado in C tier. And then our final skin is yet again a pink, because there are no red SGs yet. And it's the SG Colony 4. Interesting. You have some like ant creature standing on top of what's clearly a bunch of like dead people with gas masks on. Kind of some like venom or like toxic stuff like kind of flowing all throughout the weapon. Decent colors, decent design. The scope with a little 4 on it for Colony 4 is also a pretty cool touch. And it just flows kind of well. It's got a pretty decent design. I'd say it's pretty well deserving of probably a high B tier, possibly A tier, but I don't think I'm going to push it up that far. But yeah, that's it for all the SG skins in CS. I hope you guys enjoyed, and yeah, make sure to comment below if you have any opinions you want to share about SG skins, or just anything, honestly. I'd love talking to you guys. And I will see you in the next one.